Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir El-Azouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we'll continue to talk about risk management. We had a previous podcast talking about risk management as an introduction. And today I wanted to talk more about the risk-benefit ratio for risk management, because we had to do this exercise when we are making the risk analysis. We have also to do this exercise when we are doing our clinical evaluation report. And it is something that is mentioned also on the technical documentation for EU MDR to do that. And to help us to talk about risk management, I have a specialist. I can call him a guru on that because he's talking a lot about risk management in all his videos. So Naveen Agarwal, that is talking about risk management, and is the principal and founder of Creative Analytics Solutions. So Naveen, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Well, hello, Munir, and thanks for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here today.
Great. I mean, as I've said, that I saw a lot of your videos on your YouTube channel, so I'm really encouraging also people to go and to see them. You are taking the subject of risk management and you are really slicing that on small pieces and try really to educate people on that, which I really like. And we are really sharing the same objective to educate people on that way, so which is great. So Naveen, can you make a small introduction of yourself first, and then we can really try to educate people on this risk-benefit ratio exercise that they have to do?
Perfect, Munir, and thank you again. Hello, everyone. My name is Naveen Agarwal, and I'm an engineer by training. So I actually did hands-on product development in my career for more than 10 years. I did the product development myself, and I also led product development teams globally. So I actually know very intimately what the product development process looks like, what kind of challenges we face early on. We are doing our best to meet requirements, correct? Now, in the medical device industry, part of those requirements also relate to regulatory requirements and safety in particular. So when I transitioned into the medical device industry, that was probably one of the biggest challenges I had to overcome in terms of my learning process, because my outlook as an engineer is always about a very pragmatic outlook, a problem-solving approach. I want to focus on how to do things, and most engineers like to do that. But the lesson has been for me is to learn the what and the why first before we jump into the how. So my journey into the world of regulatory compliance was kind of by accident, because I was doing work in the lab and doing product development, manufacturing, platform development along with my colleagues. And it so happened that our quality department in my last organization, where I worked for more than 10 years, one day realized that they really needed technical experts in the quality function, which was really a blessing in disguise, because quality function typically is dominated from the regulatory compliance point of view. So my job as a product quality manager, and I was one of the 4 to be hired in that role, was to be sort of a champion of a certain brand of our products, starting from regulatory aspects to manufacturing, to quality improvement, to patient satisfaction, everything. I was responsible for all of it. And in doing so, I had to learn all about regulatory requirements. And at the same time, I had to actually help develop projects and work on projects to improve the quality, to enhance patient satisfaction. So it was the whole spectrum. That was a great experience for me. Because when I was asked to develop a post-market safety surveillance process from scratch, and this was 10 years ago, even before EU MDR, when people were talking about post-market surveillance, even before then, it was challenging. But what was even more challenging, Munir, was I was asked to run that process for 2 years. You could not walk away just by creating procedures and templates and forms.
Yeah.
You had to run it, which means I learned what it takes to build a procedure and run it. And that is the kind of mindset I have in my practice today, where I think about the practical side of everything. And you mentioned risk management as my focus, and definitely I feel that the practice of risk management is very challenging. Requirements are challenging, but more challenging is the practice. And that is where my focus, Munir, is to really share what I know, what I learn, and also what other people know and learn, and sharing these insights in a collaborative way. We can all get better at risk management. So my focus is to help people get better in risk management in a practical way.
Great.
And this is where this opportunity for a discussion with you is so useful and important for me.
No, it's great, and I really value that because as you said, so sharing also and practicing, not just saying that you should do this, you should do that. No, you have practiced it, so you know about it, so you know what are good and bad, or maybe the issues. Because learning by just reading a book is maybe not so good, because at the end you can make some mistakes, and mistakes are good. You can learn. It's how you will be learning and then educating others about that, which is really great. We talk mainly about risks, and as you said, you have also education about any other topics about quality and regulatory affairs. Risk is really a topic that is central, if I can say, to everything. When we do about risk, when we talk about risk for projects, risk about products, manufacturing risk, user risks, and when we talk about the IEC 62366, for example, I mean, risk is central. So, but for maybe people that are starting this journey about risk, so how would you evaluate, or how would you qualify what is a risk? What is your definition of a risk?
Yeah, and that is actually a very good point, because this term risk is defined in different ways, and it's the context that matters. And I think that's one reason why people get very confused about the terminology. And I'm actually very focused on terminology, because until we get that right, we cannot really do our job efficiently and effectively. So I'm really focused on terminology. So having said that, if you look at the term risk and how it is defined in different standards, it creates a lot of confusion. And that is probably part of the reason why we find the practice of risk management so difficult. As an example, ISO 9000 would define risk as effect of uncertainty. Now, what does that mean, right? ISO 13485 risk definition is very consistent with the definition of 14971, but ISO 13485 wants us to also think about risk related to compliance, not just safety and performance. ISO 14971 risk management is exclusively focused on safety and risk of harm, right? So it becomes complex when we use the term risk in different parts of our quality management system, because our purpose of risk management is different in the context of different aspects of our quality management system. So that's, I think, one point I want our viewers to understand, is that before they jump on a risk management project or doing anything with risk management, they should take a step back and ask the question, what is the context of this risk management activity we are about to perform? What is the boundary? What is the scope? And how are we going to accomplish our goal for the risk management activity in that framework? So I want to start with that first, Monir, before jumping into risk benefit, because that is before we figure out what the context is, before we figure out what the deliverable is, we should not jump into action. And I know we are in a fast moving world, right? But I guarantee you guys, if you spend even 20% of your time planning properly, and let's be honest, I don't think we are spending 20% of our time planning.
No,
let's be honest. We are spending 80% of our time doing and 20% of the time reacting, and we are in a loop. So even if you spend 20% of our time planning and just asking the questions, understanding the context, and defining the term risk precisely within that context, we will be spinning our wheels, which is what I see happening in the industry today. Does that make sense?
It makes completely sense. And what I like also on what you are saying is the fact that we have to be clear in terms of the terminology, of the scope, of the limits that we are talking about, because I'm seeing also some manufacturers or some people that are working within those manufacturers that are feeling overwhelmed because they think that the sky is the limit, if I can say. So they are saying, but I mean, we have still this. I mean, when I was young, we had still this story about a manufacturer of a microwave that didn't put on his instruction for use that you should not put your cat inside to dry your cat inside the microwave, etc. And the cat was died, if I can say, and then he was sued because he didn't put that on the instruction for you. So we start to have this thinking of going too far, going to too much and say, where should we stop? Where is exactly the moment we say, no, now is the boundary, here is the limit, we should not go beyond this line because at the end it's too much. So is there an idea or kind of a tip to say, here is the limit and we should not go beyond that limit?
Yeah, and I look at it slightly differently, Murray. I think we should exercise common sense. Because think about it, in our daily lives, we are managing multiple risks without even thinking about them. Right? We are making benefit risk decisions almost on a daily basis.
Clear.
And why and how are we able to do that? We don't do a lot of statistical analysis in our heads.
No.
Right? We don't write a manual for that because we have learned. Now, some could argue that maybe we learned the hard way. Sure. But that happens in the industry also, right? Sometimes we learn the hard way. Sometimes we learn through experience of others. But let's not forget that we are all very capable people. Our industry is full of very capable professionals. We are highly trained, highly competent. We have a lot of common sense. Risk management, at the root of it, is all about common sense. So there is no magic formula. It's common sense. And when you find yourself in a situation where you are struggling with these finer points, take a step back and ask the question, hey, what would common sense tell us? Where should we stop? Right? You ask the question, where should we stop? You stop wherever you feel that the benefit risk balance is favorable as it could be without further creating complexity.
No, I think it makes completely sense. And as you've said, common sense should be also on the balance because we have, and for the listeners, there are a lot of people that are more in the analytic way and that are trying to find the formula, the equation, the things, etc., and that are making things a bit complicated. But when you are doing a risk analysis evaluation, we are all humans, so we cannot think of everything. And sometimes when we receive a new complaint, we see, oh, there is a new risk that is happening. Then we are updating our risk management file. So it's a never ending loop where we are going back to the risk management and forth. And nobody will be, if I can say, blaming you if you have missed a risk that is not obvious and not really making sense normally, because it happened to your product. So this is also this exercise also to think that, it will never be perfect. It will be something we should make it as perfect as possible, but you never reach perfection. And each time you will have to add things or to identify new elements.
And one very quick point, Monir, if I may make, is that let's not forget that we work with a team of people.
Yeah, true.
We don't work alone. And I think that is where we can really benefit from the diversity of viewpoints, diversity of thoughts. Risk management is a very difficult thing to do. It's a cross-functional activity. We should not be very prescriptive about it. We should have a process in place. We should understand what we are supposed to do, but we should allow the team to also actually contribute from an individual point of view as well as from a group point of view. And when we have diversity, people say, are you a glass half full type of a person or a glass half empty type of a person, right? Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? We want all of those dimensions of human personality in our teams. So let's make sure we have a diverse team in place, which can talk about these concepts and ideas and challenge each other and keep each other on track. Because if somebody says, hey, we have not done as much as we could to reduce risk to as far as possible, right? Someone could make the argument, is it good enough?
Yeah.
Compared to the benefits? Because if I delay my product by one more year in the marketplace, I'm actually hurting my patients even more because they don't have any other option.
Exactly.
So we can counterbalance these viewpoints using our common sense. And when we get stuck only one line of thinking, I don't think we are doing risk management.
No, I think it's completely, I totally agree with you. And what I'm seeing a lot, and this is mainly the thing that maybe is hurting this process, is the fact that some companies are giving this activity of risk management to maybe the quality or regulatory affairs person, saying it's something that you need or the quality needs for their dossier. So you have to make it and to do it, or there is not a lot of engagement from all the people to do that with them, etc. So the quality and regulatory affairs people feel alone and try to do something, but just making sense, if I can say. And this is not made to be made like for the regulators or for things. It's really for your company to find any risk possible to then reduce them as low as possible. But it should be an engagement from everybody. And as you said, because I think I listened to one of your video when you said, yeah, you have to have diversity on the team, have to have a lot of people, even people that you don't like, if I can say, that are against your will, because this is this debate that will happen and that will find the right balance, if I can say, between this benefit risk ratio and also be the fact to have it or not inside your risk management, which I really like on that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, as we said, risks and benefits. So we are focusing ourselves, I mean, since many years, we are focusing ourselves on the risks. We have a risk management file, we have risk evaluation, we have to identify what are the limits of the risk, the RPN, etc. Mm-hmm. We don't talk too much about benefits until recently, if I can say. I mean, it was mentioned, but now the authorities are really looking also at this benefit notion. So how are we defining that benefit notion? How this enters into the equation here?
Very good question. Very good question. And it is the 2019 version of ISO 14971 that defines benefits for the first time. Benefits were always in the equation because when you go to the regulatory authorities with your submission, they are evaluating you for safety and effectiveness. And that is done in the context of benefit risk. So it was always being done, but since it was not defined precisely, people really didn't know what it meant. And it was left for assumptions and debates and arguments. Now, Munir, they have defined it very carefully and very clearly. Benefits has three components. It could be benefit to an individual patient, which is the way we mostly think about things. But don't forget, there is benefit for patient management. Let's say in a hospital environment, you have a patient monitor, right? That is used many times. It may be networked. It may be used on multiple patients, and it is a benefit. The third benefit that we sometimes not think about is public health. We are just coming out of COVID, and think about just 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't even have a tool to diagnose COVID. We didn't have it. And within only a few months, we started producing rapid tests. They were not perfect. And I want to talk about that in the context of benefit risk, because the issue of public health was so dominant, so prominent for us, that it was very important for us to think about that benefit and put investment and resources and our innovative capabilities in coming out with a solution that was good enough to go out of the door quickly, right? So that's the third aspect of benefit. So we need to be thinking about all of those benefits, making a case for why our medical device, in the context of its intended use, might have one or more benefits. So we should think broadly about it. Now, having said that, it's all related to the intended use, which, as you know, is a regulatory requirement and a definition, and it takes a while, right? When you start product development early on, probably your marketing department has a list of benefits that they anticipate, right? Long list. Not all of them probably could be justified based on the intended use you settle in the end, because it all depends upon what you're going to pitch to the regulatory authorities. So the concept of benefit also evolves during design and development over time. So make sure what you are starting with is broad, but it's narrowed down during design and development. And whatever the final definition is, you should have a very clear list of tangible benefits within the context of intended use. And my recommendation is they should be measurable benefits, not just, fanciful ideas and imaginative ideas. They should be measurable. Can you measure them? Can you do a clinical study as an endpoint that demonstrates achievement of that benefit? Because it'll make your case stronger. So having said that, think broadly in the beginning, but then narrow it down through design and development through iterative exercises. Come to the regulatory definition that you will propose to the regulatory authorities, and then make your final table of benefits, which should, in my recommendation, be measurable as much as possible. Does that help?
Should we then put against, if I can say, the benefits that are measurable and then the risks that are also measurable, because we are trying also to put some numbers there and to make them work together and see which one is the best.
Let me come to that. So let's not think about it as a one-to-one. I don't want you to think about benefits in column 1 and risks in column 2. Don't think about it that way. What I meant to say was that have a list of benefits, and they should be measurable, They should be quantifiable in terms of who benefits, how many people will benefit. That means how extensive the benefits would be, how long would the benefits last, and what's our level of certainty or level of uncertainty in our projection of benefits. This is actually a framework that FDA has provided us in a guidance. I'll provide you a link. You can share that with your viewers. In fact, in that guidance, they provide a framework and a worksheet that can help you evaluate the benefits and the risks. And they are not done side by side in column structure. So first thing I want to say is that we have been thinking about Excel for a long time, working with Excel for a long time. And all our thinking is column A, B, C, D. Let's not worry about that. We're going to live in the world of relational databases. Okay, that's a new world. So do your benefit exercise separately and do your risk exercise separately. Because let me pose this question. How many times do we know that an individual specific risk related to a hazardous situation can be mapped specifically to one or more benefits? We don't. We don't. In fact, we should touch upon this benefit risk analysis if we have time, for an individual risk and for overall risk. These are two separate activities. So it's hard for us to sometimes precisely say a specific individual risk in the context of a specific hazardous situation is now mapped to one or more benefits in my list. It is difficult, not impossible, but difficult, right? So I don't want us to think one by one. I want us to think benefits and risks separately, and then we will put it together towards the end. And I'll talk about that.
It's really clear.
Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com.
And I think it's really the best method. And because, we have been educated like that with the FMEA, where we have one side the things, the other side, etc. So we are trying to make it in a table and to how can we present that to the authorities? How can we show them that, yes, it's A plus B, it's equal to C. So here is the result. And benefit is higher than risk, etc. So this is this education, if I can say, this formatting that we have to change a bit and to explain, no, this is two groups and we have really to try to make them link together and to show that one is higher than the other. If we are using a device and this creates some infection, but if you are not using the device, you will die. So then mainly, if I can say, here is a risk of dying or risk of getting infected. So mainly this is also the thing that is important.
Absolutely. You're so right about that.
One thing that, if I remember, you said once on your video, it was about also the COVID situation. About before COVID and after COVID, we talked about face masks. Mainly we say about before COVID, face masks, you have to use them during 2 hours or 3 hours, and then you have to throw them away. During COVID, the risk-benefit ratio completely changed because of the fact that there was not a lot of supplies of face masks. So then having to reuse a face mask or to keep it longer, etc., even if it was not normally recommended by the manufacturer, there is a benefit risk ratio higher, because if you don't use if you have no face mask, it's better to use a used face mask than to have no face mask at all. So can you just maybe elaborate on this one?
Yeah. So let's take the example of face masks. And having said that, face masks are a medical device under certain conditions, right? So surgical masks are the type of a face mask. Respirator is a type of a mask. So there are a lot of nuances to this. So let's take the example of a face mask that may be used for public health concerns. And we need to understand the intended use of that. In fact, FDA was very clear in their emergency use authorization for these face masks for that use. They were very clear that the intention here is to stop the spread of potential virus, right? Stop the spread. The intended use is not to protect the wearer from catching an infection, but it is in the interest of public health that if someone is sick or infected and they don't know about it, that we potentially stop the spread. So in that context, let's talk about the benefit use of this specific example, right? It's a very controversial topic because a lot of people were not convinced that wearing a face mask did anything.
Yeah.
And from a regulatory point of view, they are not wrong, because we are not assuring them that if they wore a face mask, their chances of acquiring the infection would be low. However, if everybody wore the face mask, everybody's chances of acquiring the COVID infection would be low. That's how we should look at it. So in terms of the benefit use statement, really is, it's a public health concern. So if we as individuals care about the public health aspect of that, even if we are not sick, we would wear the face mask because we will be contributing to a higher level of public health benefit, right? So now in terms of the risk, what is the risk to us? That's a very personal decision, right? Overall, from a regulatory point of view, you made a few comments, is that the risk of prolonged wear might be maybe localized irritation, maybe some breathing problems, maybe some other pain or discomfort. Those could be tangible risks. But from an individual perspective, there may be many other risks that we are not even considering because we don't think of them as risk of harm, right? So that's the individual perspective. So now let's say you're looking at a regulatory aspect of benefit risk evaluation. You will look at the intended use. The benefit certainly to an individual who is not sick is not very high.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about that. And that is why we had a lot of debate. But benefit to public health is extremely high, right? So you will look at that side of the benefit. Risk to an individual who has naturally very sensitive skin may be disproportionately high to the benefit they're about to receive, right? But in general, in aggregate, risk to public health is not very high because, it's a very small kind of a thin barrier. We are not even claiming that it's going to protect us from infection. We are claiming that it's going to stop the spread. So in this scenario, the benefit risk analysis should be done point by point and in an aggregate to figure out, for example, the risk of a very tight fitting mask may be higher for the individual than to a loose fitting mask. But the risk to public health for a loose fitting mask might be higher if the individual is sick. So you will do this analysis in terms of different scenarios. And you will provide an aggregated summary. Why we should ask the public, why we should even mandate the public to wear masks when we are not even able to assure them that they will not catch the infection if they are not sick. This is the essence of, I think, part of the reason why there was so much controversy was because the way we were not able to articulate the benefit risk balance to the public. We did not call upon people's collective social responsibility. Yeah. There's a lot of messaging involved. So I know we are going into a lot of different directions in that. Benefit risk is a highly complex topic. If you focus only on the regulatory side of it, you will make a lot of mistakes in your messaging, in your communication, and in the adoption of your product in the marketplace. So we have to think about both.
No, I think it's clear, and it, as you mentioned, it's really a complex subject. It's not something, as I've said, that where we have an equation and that you can really solve that just by putting some numbers on it. It's not something. It's also something where there is multiple dimensions. So you have really to look at all of this. The thing is that I think for me, it's like you have to. We come back to the common sense. You have to have some kind of common sense to all this exercise and to explain in your world how you think that the benefit is higher, the risk is lower, etc. In the context, as you mentioned, it's also in the context because before it's a certain situation happens, maybe the context is different and a new situation comes, so there is a different context. So it's also this dimension that should be put in place there. So,
but I do have a specific example. If we have time, I want to share with your viewers.
Go ahead,
that could illustrate a process they can use.
Okay.
And this actually is coming from FDA. And there's also a white paper that the FDA published a few years ago, in which they showed to us how you could do benefit risk assessment of a weight loss device. I made a video on that case study for my viewers, and I can give you a link if you are interested. But that was a very interesting illustration of how you could apply a quantitative approach, which is what I think we are interested in. Certainly it's a difficult topic. But if we have some examples of quantitative approach that have been utilized or suggested, I think we can think about a possible way. And the advantage of this would be, Monir, is that you could plan your clinical trial studies, clinical investigations, maybe a feasibility clinical or a pivotal clinical, to acquire that data, which will allow you to build a benefit risk story, which is not just, waving your hands in the air.
Yeah.
So if you like, I can give you that quick example in about a couple of minutes.
No problem.
So this is actually a weight loss device. There are already several weight loss devices in the marketplace. They have, and I speak mostly from the FDA's point of view because that's the market I monitor. Many PMA devices are available. So the first thing is that this is this device that you are going to develop, a weight loss device, is not new in the sense that there are other options available. So the very first thing to figure out is how do the benefits relate to the benefits of existing devices within the same scope of the intended use. So margin of superiority, relative margin of superiority. There'll be a baseline expectation of benefit. Let's say FDA might expect that more than at least 50% of the people who would use this device would experience at least a 5% benefit. Baseline. Without that, it's not even on the table. But having said that, compared to what else is out there, do you have a superiority margin? So FDA proposed 4 categories: short-term and long-term, and the magnitude of the benefit over existing therapies. So if the weight loss benefit is very temporary, maybe less than 12 months, versus weight loss benefit is permanent or more long-term, more than 12 months. Those are two categories. And then superiority margin, less than 5% and more than 5%. Now you have 4 categories of 4 buckets of potential benefits. Very simple, right? And still quantitative.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the risk side of the situation. You will have a variety of adverse events potentially, right? These are risky surgeries and outcomes. And what they recommended in that paper was a modified Clavian-Dindo scale, which I personally like for severity assignment. It's surgical outcomes, Clavian-Dindo. On the top, you have, now we are talking about risk matrices. On the top, you have Clavian-Dindo grade level for severity. Mm-hmm. And on the rows, you have a range of frequency of adverse events. And you can have zones, right? For each category of those 4 types of benefits, you can define a zone of acceptability and unacceptability in the context of that framework provided by the categories of benefits. So you can do a lot of creative things in terms of having the right amount of quantitative rigor. Where we go wrong is then when we say, A, it's too difficult.
Yeah.
And B, when we make up numbers.
Okay.
Those 2 scenarios we go wrong because it's not, first of all, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. You can look at some case studies. You can define an appropriate scale for measuring benefits. This was a very simple scale, right? Not complex.
Yeah.
And very simple scale to have an estimate of the risk level. So you can do many different ways the analysis. And that is where I think taking a step back and saying what question we are trying to answer, what we are trying to compare it with. If you have existing therapies available to you, you will be measured against those. If there is nothing out there and it's a life critical, serious condition, then a higher level of risk may be tolerable, but how much higher? So that's a judgment call. So you have to talk to doctors and say, and there was an example in one of the guidance that FDA provided, is that overall adverse events rates was 1%. Overall adverse event rate was estimated to be 3%. But 1% chance that someone might die. However, there is absolutely no alternate therapy available. And in a clinical trial, it was shown that 75% of the patients, actually, there was chance of 75% of benefits being realized. So you are balancing it out. It's a judgment call. So you need to provide a commentary, an argument, a rationale in a summary form after doing all this analysis. And try to convince somebody, especially regulators, that the risk is worth taking because there is no other option. So I hope that helps. I know we don't want to go into too much weeds here, but it can be done.
No, it helps a lot. And what you explained makes completely sense because there is some work here, some research, some aggregation of information that are going in one direction that is really what we are looking for. And every authorities is looking for that to really read something. I mean, I noticed because I'm reviewing also a lot of documents, and sometimes the people are just making some sentences to say, oh, the risk is really low and the benefit is really high, so we consider that the benefit risk is favorable, etc. So it's just a sentence like that to make a kind of a summary without really explanation or linking any data or whatever. So it's why I'm saying that when you are making those kind of research, and as you've said, it's creativity also to find a way, because each product is different. So you have to find also a way that is really focalize on your product, which makes really sense. And I like that, because then, you have to make some research to aggregate data and then to try to convince, as you've said, the authorities, which is sometimes difficult, but I'm always trying to remind that to people. You are the expert of your device, not the authorities. So you are the one that knows the ins and outs and this and that for your device. So you are the one that has the data to convince the authorities about that.
But let me make a quick point on that, Moni.
Yeah.
Generally, that's true. However, we are not experts on other devices available in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So the regulatory authorities are evaluating our benefit risk in the context of what else is out there. So we must do the research about what else is out there. What is the expectation? The state of the art statement.
Exactly.
Minimum expectation is state of the art. Are we better either on benefits? That means, are our benefits higher than the state of the art? Or are our risks lower than the state of the art? Or both? How much separation do we have in comparison to an expectation or a standard? That is a question to ask. And if you don't have information about state of the art, if you don't have information about competitive products, you might have marketing information. That is not sufficient. You need to have regulatory information, dig up the adverse events database. There is public information available. Look up warning letters, recalls, build a story of a risk profile of competitive products so you can compare yourself against those. And if there is nothing out there, don't limit yourself to devices. Is there a pharmaceutical option available?
Sure. So.
Right? You should look into that. And if there is absolutely nothing, and it's a very serious condition, go talk to doctors. If I brought you something in the 1950s, Munir, we didn't have pacemakers.
Yeah, sure.
People in the Second World War, people didn't even want to touch the heart because they felt just by touching the heart, they will damage the muscle. But these doctors, they started working with engineers in the 1950s and came up with so many cardiovascular devices. Why? Because there was nothing out there. And they were willing to take a little bit higher risk for patients who had absolutely no choice. Now we can say our life is much more complex. We have IRBs, yes, but still there are situations where absolutely nothing exists.
No, it's clear.
And you could then talk to doctors. So you can do a lot of things. And the reason I'm kind of passionate about this is because I feel, Munir, we get stuck. We get stuck in the mud trying to say, hey, this is a regulatory requirement. This is compliance. We won't be able to do anything about it. No, as quality regulatory professionals, we must do something about it.
No, it's clear.
Because something can always be done.
No, it's completely clear. I completely agree with you. So Naveen, thank you for all the information that you have provided. I think, the discussion was really great because we had some practical examples and we had also some what the authorities are expecting and how we can summarize that. So what we understood is that it's not so simple like just making an equation. It's really a lot of some research, some explanation, some medical writing, if I can say so, really explaining a bit of the situation, which I hope will be helping the people. So in terms of your activity at Creative Analytics Solutions, so how can you help the audience if they have any question or any problem here?
Great, Moni. Thank you for the opportunity there. In my work, my focus really is to help elevate our collective capability in risk management. And what that means for me is that I want people to get better themselves. I'm not the one who is providing the answers. So there are two kinds of services that I provide, Munir. Under the Exceed portfolio of innovative quality solutions, I help my clients to clearly understand the gaps.
Okay.
With respect to what they're trying to achieve. It could be trying to get a certification. It could be trying to meet regulatory requirements. Whatever they are trying to achieve, I help them understand the gaps very, very clearly. Remember, we talked about the what, why, and the how.
Yeah, exactly.
And I offer recommendations to them. But it's not my intent to execute on those recommendations, but I can certainly coach my client's team, which I believe is very capable.
Yeah.
I can coach them to achieve those goals. And I have done that very successfully at a very affordable cost to many clients. So gap assessment, recommendation, followed by coaching for execution. Now, on the Achieve portfolio of solutions, which you do see my t-shirt, which is really a great passion of mine because it's all about learning, development, and community. So all the work we are doing, having a conversation on LinkedIn, doing these videos, is to help us understand the field of risk management at a deeper level. And in doing so, I also offer some online training modules. In fact, we are going to kick off a live ISO 14971 training course, which is delivered live for 5 weeks, 2 hours each week, with a lot of slides and notes and practical examples. There is also on-demand version of that. So online training opportunities are available, but most importantly, there's also a community that we are developing called Knowledge Sharing Forum. It's a closed group where people can join for free. And finally, anybody can schedule a free 30-minute conversation with me just to talk about their issue or topic or anything that is of interest to them, no strings attached. So these are the different ways that people can engage with me. Most importantly, connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm very active and I want to create this conversation and ongoing learning experience for everybody. So I hope that helps and I look forward to connecting with everybody out there.
Yeah, and I also advise everyone to follow your YouTube channel also. So we'll put all the information of what we talked today and also of your YouTube channel and LinkedIn inside the show notes so that people can relate to that and contact you. I mean, if you are really wanting to learn about risk management, YouTube channel is really containing a lot of information. But yeah, this is a lot of videos that are separate, etc. So having this course that Naveen is providing will be helpful because he will put everything in the right order and helping you doing all this exercise for you. And I'm sure after that you will become an expert in that kind of exercise here. So yeah, we'll put everything on the show notes. And I hope the people then will be contacting you for that. But for me, it was really a great discussion because we had really this discussion about risk benefit analysis is really something that a lot of people are struggling with. So here I hope we give them some kind of hints on which direction they have to go and how they can execute that. But it's not easy. It's not like something that is just A to A plus B. It's really a reflection, creativity, discussion, and place all the things in a certain way with a common sense, as you have mentioned here.
Yes.
So Naveen, really thank you for your help. Thank you for all the information that you have provided, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you again, Monir, and wish you good luck as well.
You too. Bye bye.